Welcome back to Politics Tonight, and I've been speaking with a constitutional lawyer and former president of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Malaki Ugwummadu. Tonight to discuss the INEC's preparations ahead of the off-cycle elections in Imo, Kogi and Bayelsa State. Mr. Malaki, before we went on that break, we were talking about voter apathy, and you said political parties have a lot to do. But considering our peculiarities as a nation, is it realistic to think that political parties alone can do this? What about other critical stakeholders?
Well, the fact that we have peculiarities does not detract from what we know as political scientists, as students of history, even as lawyers. So we cannot continue in the same trajectory and hope that we will change what is already established. Be that as it may, I had emphasized that even INEC has, to the knowledge of Nigerians, a section of their establishment duly dedicated to voters' education, voters' enlightenment, and the civil society in Nigeria, which I proudly belong to, has also done profoundly well. I know of so many civil society organizations that are purely dedicated to election matters. I can speak of so many of them, but you can mention a few on the tip of your fingers. And the drivers of those centers are quite active, quite articulate, and many of them, do the best that they can to ensure participatory democracy. Because at the end of the day, it's about governance for the Nigerian people. So if by your conduct or failures or omissions, you have succeeded in excluding this same focus and object of this whole exercise, you probably would have just missed the entire target. So it is important that the government, the political parties, civil society segment of the population, and the citizens themselves target participation.
All right.
In short, it is that participation, I repeat, that vests legitimacy to the process.
So, this means that whatever we've been doing before now has never worked, and perhaps we need to do more. So, apart from participation, what else can we do to get people to come out and vote on election day?
I actually alluded to some of them. People want to see that those who ride roughshod on the system, those who violate with impunity the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act, are made to suffer some, the society will show some resentment, indicating that this is not how it will be. Again, the judiciary has become a very crucial aspect of our democratization process, of our election process. And you see, I have this wonderful friend of mine, a judge, who keeps reminding everyone who care to listen that for you to have a sound judgment, it must have made a common sense. You can't have a sound judgment that didn't make a common sense. So if the public is unable to relate in practical terms what they witnessed with the outcome of the judgments that go to court, well, you probably have spoken the best of English or grammar, but as it concerns those people, they are already disconnected from because we're discussing voters' apathy. The jurisprudence that we studied as lawyers, which is the science of law, teaches us that you don't win or lose a case at the point when the judgment is given. The notion of justice itself evaporates when the common man, the ordinary person, who has now become apolitical, indifferent, when he loses interest, when he no longer understands what is happening there. So it is therefore extremely important that anything that can be done to restore the confidence of the people bring them back to the fold, incentivize their participation. I'm not talking of giving bags of, I'm talking of, they must understand that it is the process by which their country can continue, their nation can truly become a republic. And that is the biggest test of the sovereignty that they have under Section 14 of the Constitution. The Constitution, Section 14, 2b says that the sovereignty of this country does not lie in the political parties, it does not lie in INEC, neither does it lie in the executive. It lies with the people of this country. How do you justify that? How do you crystallize that? How do you activate that? How do you bring that to pass? It is when they exercise their power to elect their leadership. That is when they own that leadership and support that leadership or fight that leadership. I give you an example. In 1993, many of us who were on the street, even as very young undergraduates, not so much because of what the protagonists of that election stood for, but we saw it as the need to protect the will of the people. That the people have spoken, and it cannot lie in the mouth of any person or group of persons to say that what we have said collectively no longer matters. That was the whole debate about June 12th, to restore the will of the Nigerian people, which was symbolized by the winner of that election. And you see, let us not trivialize the enormity of some of these issues we are throwing up. Countries and nations after nations have fallen. Some still contending with the indiscretions they exercise over some of these issues. Some unable to overcome them, and they get overwhelmed and broken by that. And examples are replete, everywhere.
All right. So let's move on to other issues. INEC has promised to upload the results on iREV. And I know you have said, that's just a statement.
Yes.
But should voters and candidates in those states be excited about this, considering how the 2023 general election turned out? You
know, the biggest fallout of the recent general election, the biggest disappointment was the inability of INEC to actualize that promise. In short, they've not made half of that promise this time around. They were so clear and loud, so much so that the demography of voters in that election, who are people driven by the IT world now, seeing that that was a game changer, decided consciously and deliberately to vest their hopes in that leap, that technological leap. When it didn't happen as promised, which is why I kept using my words, avowal, avowal. You could pronounce it, the rope does not make the monk. To what extent have you been able to actualize that? That is what matters.
But this is another attempt, so that's what I'm asking.
Well, we are Nigerians. We have, we're already used to hoping against hopes. We have no option other than to keep believing, and then in our own case, keep mounting the pressure, keep interrogating the issues, keep insisting that it must be done rightly. So now that Professor Mahmoud has come out with the same promise. I listened to him. I heard him, not once. I know he understands the meaning of an old woman falling more than once in the marketplace. Children will count the content of the baskets she's carrying on her head.
All right. So 11,355 bimodal voter accreditation system has been deployed in all these 3 states. How much difference can this make? Now, let me break this down.
So much difference.
Okay.
Yeah, so much difference.
2,400 beavers for Bayelsa State with 2,224 polling units.
Yes.
5,000 79 for Imo with 4,758 polling units,
Yes.
and over 3,000 deployed for Kogi with about 3,500 polling units.
Correct. So if you look at the statistics you read out now, you could see that there is a deliberate intention to ensure that it works. What we do on the other side of the fence is to keep insisting that it must work. The reason being that we really do not have options. And even the luxury of time. You talk about voters' apathy. It is not for nothing that people have resigned to their fate. And I imagine that the best thing is not to give up and throw up your hands in defeat. The best thing is to juxtapose what you have now with the resources that have been deployed and the responsibility that they bear. And they are constitutionally bound to perform, you know, so that we don't resort to self-help. We don't resort to fisticuffs. INEC has a duty, a very sacred one, to walk their talk, to ensure that all of these preparations, and with the benefit of the lessons drawn from the immediate general election, and these are off-cycle elections that are localized and limited to just few. So if INEC could handle a national election, it stands to reason that with the deployment we have seen, the security arrangement, the logistic arrangement, and every other aspect of this election management properly put in place.
So one major task will you say INEC has ahead of it in this governorship elections?
All of the fault lines we witnessed in the general elections should be looked closely at. What are they? The effective utilization of the technology that has been deployed and agreed to be used. The logistics aspect of this whole exercise, where people come and they stay in queue for hours and are unable to do the list in terms of accreditation and the voting exercise. So they should watch that. It's too late in the day to tell us stories about how the road transport workers are not. No. You get to fix it. And to fix it is to take precautionary measures, very deliberate steps to circumvent the problems you encountered in the general elections. And what have you? Then there is also the important need to continue to sensitize the people of the country. We don't see so much from the National Orientation Agency. Yes, you could say it's not directly, but this is the time to go to work. The civil society groups that are directly focused on election, this is the time in those states to come on and sensitize the Nigerian people, encourage them to come out, and let them know that it is the business of nation building. It's not a dash, it is a race, and we must continue to.
So, how does INEC tame vote trading, especially with this current realities on ground? And would you agree that voters are now more vulnerable?
Of course they are. There's every nexus between vote trading and the state of the economy. You will agree with me, being a Nigerian, living in Nigeria, that our purchasing powers have been badly deflated and whittled down. And you will be amazed at what people are prepared to take to do anything. So that is established. It's not in dispute. What is encouraging, however, is that the election monitoring body has made, again, promises that they are working in collaboration with law enforcement agencies to ensure that the incidence of vote trading, which is a clear electoral fraud, it is prohibited. under the Electoral Act is minimized. I'm sure no one talks about completely ruling it out, but you are not at liberty. You are not at liberty to perpetrate it in the way and manner it has occurred in the past, because if you are caught, and I imagine that we should be scandalized by the way we saw it play out in the last few elections, people should be shown the way to prisons after due trials. And in this day and age, where we all have our smartphones and gadgets to capture incidences in polling units and voting environments, people should be mindful. People should win fair and square, not through manipulation or vote trading as it is. And then we, as citizens, as electorate, should be made to understand that, look, in the final analysis, in the long run, we are to be shortchanged. Those who continue in that habit, realizing that there isn't any amount that any politician or political party can offer you that will liberate you from the bondage you plunge yourself in by collecting those petitions that they throw at you.
All right. So INEC has raised concern over insecurity ahead of this election. But what do you think government can do for improved security?
Well, if we could think of elections in Borno, in Nasarawa, in some of those volatile states, we should not give up. The general pattern and strategy is to collaborate with the law enforcement agencies. We have seen in the past where the law enforcement agencies are also indicted, but I guess that is the business of those specific law enforcement agencies to be able to train their men and officers in a way that they are able to get the best from their participation in terms of providing security for election. You know, it's a peculiar type of, when I was the president of the Committee for Defense of Human Rights, we have observers scattered all around the country. And you find that not many law enforcement agencies are in this business of circumventing the rules. But those who do it compromise the will of many people, because it takes just a single corrupt, dubious police officer to compromise an entire voting center.
You're right.
Now, where you find such, what happens to him? How is he treated to the knowledge of that electorate who witnessed it and who sincerely wished that his or her vote counted? Recall the lady who participated in this election, to tell you the enthusiasm that the Nigerians have. I've forgotten her name now. The lady who was stabbed close to her eyes. He went to the house nursing her wound, and after the first aid, she returned. Even the husband encouraged, returned back to that is the level of the desire, that is the degree of the desire of the Nigerian electorate to be part of this process. And I think if we stay at it.
So as someone who has a civil society background,
yes,
what role can civil society play in helping us achieve electoral integrity?
Wow, so much. Don't forget, we collaborate with even international observers. We do voters education. We do voters enlightenment. Leaflets are produced. Mass information are disseminated in a way that targets not people in the urban city alone, but all around rural environment. Take it that they assist in what is civil society? Civil society in the developing nation coming to fill the gaps that government is unable to fill. That is what they do. So you see environment, and you see that the government is not able to tackle this issue frontally. And you see a group of conscious people around those issues organizing themselves and promoting those issues with a view to solving the problem. The same thing with elections.
All right. So in 30 seconds, the courts have the final say on our elections. Is this really healthy?
It should not have the final say. We are advocating and pushing so hard that the final say should reside with the people, and that is at the polling centers, through the ballot box. We must find a way, and those ways are realizable, by which we can deal with election processes without resorting to litigation.
All right. I've been speaking with Malaki Ugwummadu, constitutional lawyer and former president of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Thank you so much, Mr. Malaki, for coming on Politics Tonight. Really glad to have you on the show. Thank you.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much. And thanks a lot for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight.